Thank you very much, Tori, for an interesting presentation. And now we have Marta Bujakowska from Poland talking about autonomy and teenagers. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. Many of you I've known for years, and we feel like family sometimes. And I'm going to give my account, my personal account of my 12 years of work. I've been teaching for too long, sometimes I think, 30 years. Introducing autonomy in many contexts, but today I want to concentrate on teenagers. I introduced autonomy here. It's on. Is that better? Yes. Okay. So I've tried to introduce autonomy in kindergarten level as well as in primary school, but I did talk about it before. And for the past 12 years, I taught in three different schools, which were combined schools. There was a primary school, sort of middle and high school, but I want to concentrate on teenagers. I mean teenagers, secondary and high school. It covers the ages of 13 to 19 in Poland. First, I would like you to look at this little story that I found. That's better.
You should turn the presenter to the laptop. Wait a second.
I haven't got it. Okay, here is the little story for you to read. Isn't it exactly what we mean by autonomous learning? That we don't want to chew the food. And what we do, usually, generally, we spoon feed our students with already chewed food, and we want it back the next day, very often, or the next time when we test them. And we want the food in unchanged form. And I didn't want that. So what I did, I had a poster with my that will be about the school. Yes, there were 3 levels, okay. And what I did, I had my own classroom, and it was a luxury. I had my classroom that I shared with some other language teachers whenever they needed it. And I was allowed to do whatever I wanted there. So we picked out the tables because the classroom was small, it was too small for the big group. We used the floor space and the chairs. We had those chairs with little tables, like I think they called elephant ears or something. The students, first day, they hated that. They said, how are we going to do it? How are we going to fit our course book and workbook on a little table? Then I said, you will not need it. You can put it under your chair, because we will do other things. And whenever we need a course book, sometimes we have to use course books, we can always pick it up. And I put a poster on the wall that I mean, it's not mine. It's somewhere taken from some books on autonomous learning. So what I wanted through this poster, I wanted my students to understand that we work together. It's not like them and me. We work together, and the responsibility of our learning is on both sides. I wanted some autonomy for myself as well. I wanted the autonomy for them. And it was much more difficult to implement. I knew what I wanted, but then it was difficult because they were used to other things. They were used to a teacher telling them what to do and obeying or disobeying. And it was fun sometimes, right? Disobeying a teacher. And in my practice, it really never happened because I didn't give them orders. The other thing what I found out 14-year-olds that they were scared of making mistakes. So I asked, because I did a little survey, what do you think about mistakes? I don't have it here with me, but the majority of them, they said they are bad. Mistakes are bad. And I said, no, they're good, I like them. So I produced those little posters on mistakes, and I put around the walls. One of them. I had some quotations as well, but these are not quotations, this is smart. And I signed them always, Marta, your teacher. Then I explained that they are not really mistakes. What they mean by mistakes are learning steps. And of course it must be correct, because they have exams to pass, right, in the future, but not necessarily now. I think we generally are very impatient with our learners. We want them to know it now, what we are supposed to give them, teach them, help them with. What I introduced at the very beginning as well was reflection. They were not used to reflect on their own learning at all. At all. They said, what do you want us to do? Oh, yet another questionnaire. We had questionnaires. I said, no, I'm not taking them. You keep them. And I had a different system to Mini. Slightly different. They had a folder. This was my demand, really. That each of them has to have a folder that costs nothing, like plastic thing. And we had a hole punch in the classroom, so they could make holes and put everything they produced or they were given by me, also their reflection cards in it. I could have a look, of course, and they would give them to me quite systematically, but this was their private work. So this is where they kept their reflection cards. And one of the activities we did, first they produced text. I think it was animals, and it was in a sort of curriculum or course content, I can't remember exactly. But we skipped that from the course book, and they produced some text on animals, different animals. And then I had the text. I used them for running dictation. They were really energetic teenagers, so I needed them to move around sometimes and make noise. We all know what the technique is, right? Of running dictation, right? You put these slips, okay, so you put these slips of text around the walls. This is how I did it. Put your students into pairs, or they usually do themselves. And one is the writer, the other dictates. So one runs. It has to be far away so they can't see it from where they sit. They have to stand up and move. So they would go, read as much as they could hold in their brain, come back to the writer and dictate it. They couldn't use powers, sometimes they did. I asked them to use spelling, right? If they didn't know, they didn't remember. And then when I gave them a signal, they would swap roles. So they loved it. They usually enjoyed it a lot, and it was their own text. And I did it all, it was my reflective aim, was to help students understand the reason why we do what we do. That it's not because you told us. It was like, they wanted to do something, something fun. And there is the reflective question for the students. What did we do this for? Right? What the reason was? And here are some answers that I collected from them and analyzed and put them together, some of them. But I think this is where I did my correction, but sometimes I didn't. So this is what they thought, that it was to practice memory because they needed for something. I was proud. To practice spelling and writing obvious things. And to, there was some correction. This one, he thought, he or she, that it was for me necessary to check them still. Yeah, they thought it was a competition on fast writing. And there was a clever one, to learn something about our learning. The one who already, try to follow my way of thinking. Maybe it was my way, I don't know. And there was a student who usually said, I don't know, and it's for another presentation, like how to deal with students who really don't grasp it and they don't want it. There was a girl who was completely resistant to anything she had to decide. She was quite fluent, she wouldn't speak English to me. I would speak English, she would answer in Polish. So there is another, what did we do? What am I doing?
Well, it's got nothing to do with the clicker.
There? Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Two arrows, right?
Yeah, I know, it wasn't an arrow, there was a little box here as well that I pressed and, sorry. So, what did I learn about my learning today? When I asked them this question, they said, what do you want? What is our learning? Because they were told, and in our school they were told 100 times a day, you learn for yourself, you will see. We will see your test results. You learn for yourself. It wasn't really true. It was what Turing said about authenticity. They have to understand it, not being told. So they were bad dictation or whatever. Dictator even there was. Yeah, better writer than dictator. Yeah. And I learned wrong quickly. But still, this is genuine. This is what we learn. And I can't be a dictation. And concentrating, and I know that zebra have brown and white stripes because it was in one of the texts. I haven't noticed them. And there was the I don't know person. Then there was another activity, and it was about teaching for exams and post books and those things that we somehow don't know how to match with autonomous learning. This was the exam class, the final class. They were learning for the final external exam that gives them entry to university. So they're very serious about their learning. They came up to me and said, "Help, we don't know conditionals." He said, "You don't know conditionals? You use them." "Yeah, but they had some other courses, something, tests, I don't know. Help." So okay, we can do it. So they put themselves into 3 or 4 groups, I can't remember, and I gave them big pieces of paper. They drew posters on conditionals. And of course they were fine. My reflection then was to help students understand the process of learning. How they already learned it somehow, but they didn't realize it. So there was another reflection question. What and how did I learn today? They were much more advanced and 3 years already taught in a autonomous way. And I love that, through mistakes, I just folded it. Of course, I learned yet another time that they like colors and playing even with the big posters, correcting mistakes as well. And what really, I love that, because they gave me an example. They had examples, and there was something about hair, about somebody's hair, that the hair was stupid or something, if his hair hadn't been so stupid, something like that. And I made faces, right, about this example. They changed it, and they decided that it was bad and sad. And then the boy was not in the classroom. Okay, again, correct my own mistakes. So it was good training. Then we also read books in classrooms. In classrooms with younger ones, we did reading in classrooms. We first usually listened, and then they read the book as well. And we was again doing the same thing as well. This was the youngest in middle school. And this was different factors of hindering and helping their learning. They were very, very noisy and disruptive, and it didn't really hinder my work but it hindered their work, and I wanted them to really understand it. My talking about it did not bear any fruit, really. So text helped them to remember something, but there is something about it. How to work in a group. It was new, absolutely new for them. They never worked in groups. They were seated in rows and worked maybe sometimes with the person next to them, but then the teacher said, stop copying from him. And I would say, yeah, do copy, do cooperate, do work together. And expressing my own opinion. I think it's all a matter of respect. And I think respect comes from us, from grown-ups, onto the learners, not the other way around. And we sometimes expect them to respect us without being respected by us. I didn't learn. Okay, I simply listened to my teacher. This was sad. But noise, speaking nonsense, hindered me. So there was something I really wanted to achieve. I wanted them to understand. And stupidity of my peers, too much noise. The last activity I wanted to share, it was dialogue journals. They were optional, and I don't know if I regret it or not now. But I did it. I told them it was optional because they had so much homework that I didn't want to overload them with something that was so personal. And it's just one example. You will be given it on a handout, where the boy shares with you. It was on learning. I asked him many questions, but then he wrote many things how he learned different sports. But then he went into his private life, and it's so dramatic. And I thought maybe it's good that I did it in an optional way. And what followed, he sent me a piece, next piece, where he did it all, and there were no mistakes. So he said, I couldn't see any mistakes, because there were none. And he did it all by himself, all the correction, whatever he used, whatever electronic devices for it, I don't know. But he did the work on his own. There are just some examples of everyday reflections, right, that I use, and they put them in their folder, whatever we choose together sometimes, with more, with students who are used to autonomy. They would choose some of the questions. They do, okay, we want to do this today, fine, and then they put it in their file. And this was like half a year reflection. Like I wanted to do how we're doing, where we are. And this is my favorite. And could you do it? Could you do it now, please?